Some of our faculty are from New Hampshire. We also have faculty from Vermont, and we have faculty from Maine. And that's the really cool thing about this project, is that it's all three states, because the forests, they don't care where the state boundary is. The forests keep going, and the more that we can learn to appreciate what's going on in those forests, the better able we'll be as scientists to predict how those forests are going to change in 100 years or 50 years, and also the better able we are to help students who get to enjoy those forests and live with those forests appreciate what that resource is and what it means to their communities.
I'm Dr. Elizabeth Burakowski. I'm a research assistant professor at the University of New Hampshire in the Institute for the Study of Earth, Oceans, and Space.
I'm Dr. Alex Contasta. I'm also a research assistant professor, and I'm also in the Institute for the Study of Earth, Oceans, and Space in the Earth Systems Research Center. Okay, so I'm part of Theme 1, Advanced Sensing and Computing, and the big piece that I'm working on is helping to set up a network of sites across the northern forest where we're measuring microclimate, and we are also tracking a phenomenon like phenology, so the life stages of vegetation. And this is one of the sites that we're putting in this summer.
So yeah, I'm part of Inspire's Theme 3, and I am working in the integrated modeling group. I also work a lot in education and outreach, and part of the work that Alex and I have been doing that moves snow depth or combines snow depth and phenology is looking at how changes in the vernal window are impacting forests. So when we think of the vernal window, that's when when the snow starts to melt. It's essentially the start of mud season. And then when the canopy closes, this is our vernal window period. And there's a lot that goes on with energy and carbon and water that we're interested in studying. And for Theme 3 with the integrated modeling, I need data to validate models and also to help run models and make sure they're simulating our forested ecosystems in the way that we expect them to.
One of the goals of the whole project is to be able to better understand forest ecosystems that are not well represented in long-term measurement and monitoring in the region. So the coastal spruce fir forest doesn't have as much attention paid to it and doesn't have the kinds of long-term monitoring records that hardwood forests have. So we wanted to sort of take some of these underrepresented forest types and install some instrumentation to be able to track things like snow depth, air temperature, soil moisture, phenology, just to get better representation of what's happening in these forests. That was one goal. The other goal is that I wanted to meet some teachers throughout the region and help enable them to set up these kinds of stations in their own schools, either to ask questions that Liz and I are interested in around changing vernal window or changing winters, or questions that are unique to them and their communities, but really try to create partnerships where we can work together to generate really exciting research.
I'm learning a ton of new things, both in terms of forestry and how to collect different data that I can pass on to my students, and then getting a lot of really great ideas from the other educators.
I'm really excited to be working outside and learning how to teach outside a little bit better so that I can hopefully go home and teach my students. And it's also really good for me to learn about forestry because I don't have a lot of knowledge in forestry, so that's good.
And I'm appreciating the opportunity to find some more authentic work for my students to be doing, so they feel more like scientists and not just book learning. That's not the way to teach science.
I came to this workshop, I'd worked with teachers in previous contexts, largely with respect to the vernal window. And I think, Alex is right, there are a lot of different questions that we could be asking with the instrumentation. And empowering them to understand that they can study their backyard and their schoolyard and their forests that are near them in the same capacity that we do, and that we're here to help. We're here to help them understand how to do these types of installations and make the measurements that they could use to have their students be answering and asking research questions.
Classrooms working in the forests that are behind their schools are going to be able to sort of use the forest ecosystem that they're familiar with, the place that they live, as an entry point to understand bigger questions. how is climate change affecting forests? Well, if I start with my own forest and my own climate, that's sort of the entry point to get into that conversation. And schools, if they set up these long-term monitoring stations, can create their own records that are useful to themselves for sort of asking and generating their own unique research questions and testing hypotheses, but are super useful to scientists too.
Critical to understand not just like the underrepresented forest, but also the fact that a lot of our snow measurements are made at airports, or they're made in open areas, or they're made in really highly populated areas. And clearly here it's not very populated. And we're leveraging this beautiful ecosystem to be able to understand not what's happening out in the open areas where there are no trees, but also what's happening under our trees. I mean, the northeastern United States is one of the most heavily forested regions in the United States. And if we can understand how snowpack is responding to a warming climate under these beautiful forest canopies, then I think that's going to be helping us to understand water resources and changes in ecosystem health that might be related to drought or fire.